Yeah.
Well, all right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order and welcome everyone to the Coeur d'Alene School District 271 regular Board of Trustees meeting of September 9th, 2024. Would everyone please rise and together we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. Well, welcome back, everyone, to the really our first full board meeting of the school year. So I want to introduce our participants for this evening. Starting at my far right is Miss Mary Ann Southwick, Clerk of the Board, Dr. Sean Hawker, our Superintendent. To my left is Miss Leslie Berkey, Vice Chair, Miss Heather Tenbrink, Board Member, Mr. Jimmy McAndrew, Board Member, Trustee Anderton will be arriving shortly, and I'm Rebecca Smith, Board Chair. Public comment on district-related items is scheduled near the start of the meeting. Please sign up to speak at the back sheet provided at the entrance door. Comments may also be submitted to the board via email at trustees@cdaschools.org or in writing through our clerk. Thanks. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, today's agenda is approved then. We're going to go ahead and start then today with a celebration and some recognitions from our back to school breakfast. Sure. I believe they're in our packet. There's we saw Dr. Nelson come up and we were like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So we had a fantastic back-to-school breakfast. I was able to attend, and it was awesome. It's awesome to see all our staff together and feel the energy there. And we have several organizations that helped us out with that. So we would like to recognize and thank the following organizations for their participation in the district's back-to-school breakfast on August 26th at Lake City High School. Special thanks goes out to STCU for funding t-shirts for new employees and Numerica Credit Union for providing brunch for certified new hires on August 21st. In addition, we'd like to thank AccuSure, the Murray Group, Colonial Life, United Heritage Insurance, Blue Cross of Idaho, Coeur d'Alene Educational Association, Corebridge Financial, the Excel Foundation, the Kroc Center, Make-A-Wish Idaho, Northwest Dental Benefits Group, Numerica Credit Union, Peak One Administration, Percy, Southwest Food Service Excellence, STCU, Universal Retirement, University of Idaho, Willamette Dental, and WRI Investments. We appreciate all those organizations' support of 271, and it was a fun way to start the year, so thank you.
Thanks. We wanted to start, next up is just board comments, and there's two items that we wanted to take just a quick moment to comment on. One would be the first is really the emergency levy from last Friday, and we did not hold an emergency levy meeting last Friday as we compared last year's attendance numbers from the first 3 days of school to this year's numbers. And while there's a slight increase in students from last year, we didn't believe that the slight increase was substantial enough to consider an emergency levy. We believe that our current $25 million supplemental levy and the state funding that's generated from our attendance numbers will cover that current enrollment increase. And we'll also better understand our ADA, average daily attendance and enrollment after the first Friday in November. So we'll continue to look at that as we move through the year. And so wanted to just make a quick comment about the emergency levy, as there's always questions about that every time the word emergency comes up and how does that work? And so we'll continue to evaluate that as we move forward. And then just the second board comment wanted to make tonight would be about the 2024 school property tax rate and property tax relief that was passed last Friday. So last Friday, the state allocated $4.8 million to our district, which is our share of the school facilities funding for property tax relief. And these funds are intended to reduce the district's bond and supplemental levies. And so we will use those funds to make our $1.8 million annual bond payments and the remaining $3 million to reduce this year's supplemental levy from $25 million to $22 million, saving the average homeowner approximately $44 on their 2024 taxes. So those savings are for this year only, and we're just hopeful that we will continue to receive additional property tax relief in future years. And one question that I had for Dr. Hawker was, well, is that something we vote on? And it's not something we as a board vote on. That is something that the legislature puts into law and passes down, and so we're hopeful for the future. So wanted to just make those comments as we start this evening. Wanted to go ahead then, and we'll go ahead and move into public comment. And we have one person signed up for public comment this evening, and so Mr. Green will invite you up for a 3-minute opportunity to present to the board. And just keep in mind that we won't respond to your public comment, but if you have anything for us as a board, we would welcome that now.
It's 3 minutes? I thought it was 2. Cool.
You have a whole 3 minutes.
You know, I have a couple of things. I kind of titled my thing Coherence for some reason. A couple of compliments and a suggestion. So the last board meeting, you guys talked about the options for the levy, 25 million, 25.75 million, and had a discussion about that. And I was really impressed that you worked towards being all together on it. I mean, it could have been more divided than it turned out. And so I'm always like the idea when the chair and the superintendent were promoting, and everybody, all you guys went along with it, to have a unified approach, because I think that says a lot to the community about representing different factions and different ideas that are out and about in Coeur d'Alene, and here's the board as one body saying, we could do this, but we're going to do that because we think that's going to be better, and it saves them some money, so they'll like that. So I was impressed with that. I always like to see those times when you work towards consensus, or I don't like that word consensus, work towards agreement. And the other thing that I thought I'd compliment you on was at the park thing out there, when I finally found it, at Ramsey Park, Marianne was showing me the pictures of all these apples, big boxes of apples. So you guys, I guess, went around to all the schools and gave an apple to every teacher. And I remember one of my teacher friends telling me a couple of years ago that used to be a tradition a long time ago, and it kind of faded away, but maybe it didn't. At least it's not this year. So I thought that was really cool, because I think that the teachers, as you know, are your mainstay resource, along with their assistants and all the other adjunct things that go along with making learning happen. And boy, you can't do enough to help the teachers feel wanted, included, loved, and appreciated, and that without them, the whole thing kind of falls flat. And so my suggestion is, as you were talking about the budget or the levy last time, you were mentioning that there's $750,000 hole or deficit, or whatever you want to call it, and that there's ways the administration is going to trim. They kind of got it figured out so that it's going to be okay. I thought there's another way you could trim too. A couple years ago, I asked the question, why is it that it seems to me, from my observation of some of the, when I was working in the schools, that teachers get more work almost every year in terms of their expectations, their reports, their creating statistics and computer stuff, and I mean they're always on their computer, emailing parents and arranging organizations and working on curriculum and working with students. And I think that some of the teachers, all the teachers I knew anyway, were very dedicated to helping kids who had learning problems figure out what's wrong and fixing it. And they're spending their time and their energy, their creativity, the love of their hearts for kids to figure out what's going to help them get better. But sometimes you got to take all kinds of time to go back and create statistics. And I'm thinking, instead of asking them, I don't know how much that is, but if you could trim even just one little thing from the teacher's administrative overhead, I think that would be really kind of neat gesture that recognize their hard work, and sometimes how it's so overwhelming, all the things they have to do, besides teach, which is their main love. And so I was just knowing, so they're like creating statistics. So they crunch numbers and they give you results, and the administration's got to pass it up the ladder, I guess, and accountability is the thing. But you could give them a little bit of extra incentive maybe to, instead of creating statistics, change statistics. So when kids are having trouble learning, instead of reporting the trouble, report how much better they're doing. gives them more time, gives them more energy, gives them more incentive to spend what they really love to do on the kids. Because I saw that so up close all the time. And the other stuff is kind of necessary, but it's sometimes pretty burdensome when there's so much of it. So I would just see if you can encourage, besides trimming $750,000, trim some of those overhead pushes that teachers kind of feel burdened with.
Thank you, Mr. Green. We
guess-
appreciate you.
Was that 3
and-
minutes?
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks so much. And thanks
all
for
your
coming on
hard work
on
and
Saturday.
service.
Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda, we have superintendent comments. And so,
Yeah, we'll defer the superintendent comments to Seth and have a report on our summer project update for the trustees.
thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hawker, Chair Smith, members of the board. It's my honor to present to you some of the projects our operational departments worked on this summer. We had a very busy summer with lots of things. Most of these items have come to you previously, either through budget and planning or approvals for specific bid awards. But I just wanted to give all of you a summary of some of the things that were worked on this summer. So in our maintenance department, they were very busy doing a lot of different projects, especially around HVAC and roofing. In many cases, we work with local vendors to do this work. And so a total of 27 HVAC units were replaced at a bunch of different schools by Legacy and Metalcraft. And then we also replaced aging boilers. Yes, there are still boilers out there at Canfield. And then as far as roofing goes, this project was coordinated with those HVAC projects. So CHS, Fernan, and Hayden Meadows, we replaced parts of roofs at all three of those buildings. And then we also made some emergency roof repairs to Winton as well. So all those projects combined were about $830,000, all through federal ESSER funds that were left for that purpose. Additionally, we replaced a lot of flooring at many buildings. Lake City additionally got a great deal on a gym floor resurface using some of their building funds. If you haven't seen it yet, it looks amazing. They were really proud of the deal that they were able to get, especially compared to Sandpoint, who apparently used the same vendor and paid quite a bit more. And then CHS's auditorium also received an update thanks to their boosters. That project also turned out well. That was done by Stancraft, who donated a lot of their time, I believe. And then in terms of moving, one thing that a lot of people don't realize that our maintenance team does is move staff around the district. So all of our Bora teachers who were displaced and put at other buildings, they helped move all of them. All of our early learning center staff that moved from the church on Ramsey over to Bora, they did all that work. Additionally, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things because sometimes this goes unnoticed and it is a cost savings to the district. They worked to swap the dust collector at CHS with a no longer used one at Venture. So we don't have a shop program at Venture anymore, but we do still have one at CHS. And so that one was going out, and instead of buying a new one, we just swapped one with Venture. And then they did the same thing with the trash compactor at Sorensen. They took the one from Bora over there. So overall, that saved about $40,000. So I just wanted to highlight that. And that picture there is of new flooring at the online learning room in Venture. Turned out amazing. We have quite a few students there, and so this was a priority for us this summer. That is the old shop at Venture, and so it's a pretty large space, but it turned out great, like I said. Another big project was just our grounds crews. They were out all summer working in the heat, trying to keep up with mowing. This is the Lake City soccer fields. I got a comment last week that they had never looked so green, and they worked very hard to make sure that they looked that great. They also assisted with the Lake City Booster Club stadium renovations, so there was a lot of grass that had to be replaced. We also received some sidewalks in front of Hayden Meadows, so they assisted with our side of that, so some of our property was impacted. And then there was, of course, a lot of other projects. One thing that they're going to be working on this fall and throughout the school year is replacing some of our trees and shrubs. As many of you probably know from your own yards, this last winter was particularly hard on some of those, and so we're waiting to see if some of them come back, and then we'll be replacing some of those. But that staff is very busy over the summer, as you can imagine. In terms of security, one of our big projects in our security department was to upgrade all of our fencing. In many cases, fencing had not been addressed since the buildings were constructed. So in some cases, that was 20 years ago. This is Sorensen. Sorensen got a new higher fence. They also added some privacy screening to some parts of it. So think like Bryan that has that long fence line along Harrison. Now it has some privacy screening, so you can't easily see into the playground. That also makes it harder to scale the fence from the outside. So there's a couple of different reasons why we did that. Additionally, many of our fences still had barbed tops, which obviously is dangerous. And so we had them remove those as well. That was about $350,000 through a state grant, and we worked with Idaho Fence, who did generally a pretty good job. Another big project, and I was telling Chair Smith earlier, this is probably the biggest project that I've been a part of. We replaced about 800 of our security cameras district-wide. This took years actually of planning and trying to find budget to make this happen. So this was about $1 million project funded primarily through federal funds. We also got a local grant and then used some of our security and technology budgets. These were about 11-year-old cameras, so they were failing constantly. Our staff was having to replace them. They originally were funded with bond funds, so we were able to do it with federal funds this time rather than adding it to a bond or an additional levy, which I think is a win for our district. And then also in security, we finished the last two security entrance remodels. So this created secure vestibules into our elementary schools. Dalton and Ramsey were the two that were finished this summer. This was also funded through federal ESSER funds, about $925,000. This one actually came in $140,000 under budget for the last 6 elementary remodels. If you haven't been by Ramsey or Dalton, they turned out amazing. This is some of the best entrance remodels I think that we've done. And over the years, we've done almost all of our schools. There, of course, are so many more. All of our operational departments were very busy during the summer, from School Plus to transportation, technology, of course, also finance and human resources, but that's just kind of some of the highlights. In your packet, there's a more fleshed out version of the newsletter that I sent to principals this fall, but I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions? I think I just made the comment to Seth right before our meeting, just what a long list. I was kind of comparing, and it's a lot that happened over the summer. I was really impressed by that list. So
No question, just good job. That was a lot of work.
Yeah,
That was a
appreciate it.
very long list,
Yeah,
so well done.
they all worked super hard, so
Yes.
they'll
Thank
pass that
you.
along.
Thank
Thanks.
you all to everybody.
Yeah, appreciate it.
perfect. All right. I think we're good on questions then. Welcome, Trustee Anderton. We're going to move on then to our consent agenda this evening. If there's any questions on anything on consent this evening, otherwise we'll take a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
So moved.
Was there a second? Any further questions or? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, tonight's consent agenda then is approved. Tonight we have our first reading then, number of policies here coming up for first and second reading. So this is a first reading. This is the revised policy 2435 regarding advanced opportunities. And this essentially changes the amount of money that's allocated for each of those programs. Dr. Nelson, is there anything to present on that, or trustees, or is there any questions?
Chair Smith, Superintendent Hawker, and members of the board, the changes that have been presented to you are simply those changes as mandated by new statute in terms of a change in the total dollar amount allowed to students.
Thank you.
And I believe this was from statute too, but there's also a slight CTE change, right?
Correct. There was some workforce preparedness exams and some other things that are now covered that were not covered in original statute.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. There is a motion there if anyone would like to make it this evening, and we can push this out to public comment.
I move to accept revised policy 2435, advanced opportunities, and advance it to the public comment period.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, we'll move that policy out, and that'll benefit all sorts of students. So, second readings then before us. We have policy 1140 regarding vacancies, and there was no public comments received on this, and this has to do with vacancies for trustees after local elections. Trustees, is there any comments or further reflections on this policy?
I believe these next few policies were just changed because of change in Idaho statute. So I move to approve the required revisions to policy 1140, vacancies, as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes then. So policy 1500 is regarding board meetings. Again, no public comments were received. And this has to do with recall. And so, unless there's comments or questions, if there's a motion.
I move to approve the required revisions to policy 1500, board meetings, as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so that policy passes, and we'll move on then to 1500P, which is board meeting procedures, and this is a required update as well regarding public comment. And so, actually, no, this isn't the public comment one. This is the library. No, this is 1500P. All of us. Board meeting procedures. Yeah. So, yeah. Sorry, I was just.
that's okay.
I was reading
I
it really
move,
quick.
I move to approve the required revisions for policy 1500P, board meeting procedures as presented.
There's-
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The next one is policy 2500, which is library materials. Again, this is an update to the legislative act. Any comments? There's no public comments received. So, and there's a motion before us.
I move to approve the required revisions to policy 2500, library materials as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. The next is policy 2530, learning materials review and reconsideration, and this just lays that out. And so, is there a motion?
I move to approve the required revisions of policy 2530, learning materials review and reconsideration as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And then the last one is policy 4105, and we had some questions last board meeting about this that we pushed to our legal team to review. There was one public comment that was attached, and I guess I just want to speak to that public comment just because in reflection that this board and the boards previous have always voted to have public comment on any topic. We've consistently voted that way, and so so this is something that's coming from the legislature. So, are there any comments or anything on this policy?
As I've considered this, I mean, it is currently the state law. There is a chance that will be modified But right now, this is the state law, so I think I'm in support of approving this policy for that reason. But I would like to make sure that the public knows other mechanisms, right? Like, we all read our email. The board has committed to having a quarterly public event of some kind. That's another opportunity to come talk to trustees. While I think we need to approve this policy, I would like to have everyone really understand we're not trying to shut down your interaction with us, your comments and information to us. So.
Yeah, I agree with that too. As stated in the last board meeting, I don't love this change, but it is the law, so at this point, our hands are tied. But a reminder that people can suggest or put a request for an agenda item to be added 7 days in advance. Is that I think that's in the statute, 7 days in advance. And so we're always interested in hearing what people have to say, and there's lots of ways to get a hold of us. So please don't be discouraged by this change.
All right. Thanks. There is a motion there. If someone would.
I move to approve the required revisions to policy 4105, public participation in board meetings as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. All right. Thank you. All right. I'd like to welcome up Dr. Nelson then to talk about our continuous improvement plan that we provide to the state every year. Welcome.
Absolutely. It's exciting to be able to see everybody back. Chair Smith, Superintendent Hawker, and members of the board. Thank you again for your service to our district and our community. One of those rights that you have as a trustee is to review our annual goals and consider adopting them for our statewide continuous improvement plan. We're required by statute to have this plan packaged and posted to our district website on or before October 1st every single year. Tonight we've presented the plan to you in two different sections. Also at your seat, I assume that you have a copy of our Drive to 2025, our professional learning plan goals for this year. These have been concatenated by work from district teachers, district administrators, our board and district staff as well. And you'll see our priority areas right inside those 5 specific areas that we really wanted to target. And as you go through each of these metrics that we'll take a look at here in just a moment, I think you'll see a lot of connection to this. Each of these pamphlets has been given to a member of our district staff, and they've been included in all of our induction work to start off the year.
Are they also on our website?
Yes.
Okay.
They're under cdaschools.org/strategic plan. And that's where all of those QR codes and all of the other work that you see with our Gantt chart are also posted. Can we get to some of the metrics that we put together for you? I'm going to move this over here to the other screen so that people can see kind of what we're talking about. So we have 2 different templates. One is called the metrics template. And ultimately, this template contains a variety of standardized assessments. You'll notice that some of the rows are shaded in either blue or yellow or orange, and some of the rows are not shaded. The shaded rows are goals that are mandated by the State Department or State Board of Education. So we had to include 4-year cohort graduation rate as an example. But we also do track internally our 5-year cohort graduation rate. So that's included there, but it's not shaded because the state didn't tell us to be able to do that. So that's a little bit of a key for that as you're looking through it. We approached the strategy the same way that we looked at last year. We had approached you and said that we wanted to look at 5% growth goal year over year. But we did the exact same thing, but we employed a little bit of a twist in that some of our metrics were approaching the 90th percentile. And once you're at 90, a 5% growth goal is a little bit tough. So we did say that once we hit right around that 90th percentile, we're only looking for a 2% growth goal along the way. So for example, on the first metric, you'll see last year our goal or our actual was 89. This year we were hoping for a 91% graduation rate. That's also calculated a year behind, so it's a little tougher to put a goal in something that's already been done. So as you go down and take a look at that, you'll see many of the metrics. A lot of them deal with things that we present regularly to the board, including the Idaho Standards Achievement Tests at the end of the year, the Idaho Reading Indicator twice a year, and you'll notice some of the subgroup conversations that are in there inside of your pamphlet. We saw that some of our subpopulations of students were not gaining or growing as much as some other subpopulations. So we really wanted to put a target on some of those, which you'll see in there, specifically around students with disabilities, students of Native American Alaska heritage are included in those. The other document that is attached to your agenda this evening is what they call the staff performance template. We are required to include this template, but it does not have everything to do with staff. But these are all of the other things that just didn't fit into that first page of metrics. So on this set of metrics, you'll notice things that we are commonly interested in our district, such as AP results, intervention practices, progress monitoring metrics. But again, all of those do have a 5% growth goal for this coming year. So at this time, we've given you some of our data in our draft templates. We'd love to ask if you have any questions so that we can make sure that everything gets perfected and packaged and posted onto the district website to meet that statutory deadline.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Trustees, are there any questions for Dr. Nelson?
Not a question, just
appreciate this.
just an observation. Anybody that's watching this from home, I think this is one of those things where you should stop and take note and dig into this yourself, because it answers a lot of questions. Specifically those metrics that are kind of off the radar, because I get a lot of questions about what are we doing? Are we keeping our eyes on kids that are behind and catching them up? So I thought it's very thoughtful, and I would think parents would find this interesting. So kudos.
Well, thank you. This entire team that you see behind me here has a lot of that. We are all interested in seeing the success of our kids. And as we put together our goals for this last year and realized the success that we wanted to see this last year, we also recognize that if we are to get from 2 to 1, that number 1 performing district, there's a lot of things that we can do just a little bit better. And so a lot of those metrics clearly define where we want to put our time and talents. So thank you.
Dr. Nelson, as I look at the priority areas here for this year, what would you say are some of the maybe shifts from last year that we should maybe draw our attention to, or things that kind of we achieved last year and that we need to pay that we're paying more attention to this year because it's a new year and we have a new focus?
Absolutely. Subgroups is an area that we have to look at. And I don't want to highlight one subgroup over another, but for example, if you were in the subgroup of students with disabilities last year, unfortunately you were about 30% less likely to meet grade level standard. Where there certain are understandings as to why that may be the case, that's too big of a gap. And when we started looking at some of our subpopulations that maybe we don't have a huge number of, for example, we have about 55 students who classify themselves as having Native American heritage. Well, that's important. We need to make sure that we're understanding what their needs are and why that subgroup isn't performing as well. So there's going to be a lot more focus on digging a little bit deeper than just presenting the base level data, but also taking a look at how our subgroups are performing relative to our work. Number 4, I think you're also going to see some more interest in this year, and that's our continued work on intervention practices, especially at the secondary. We saw some success this last year with the intervention practices employed initially by Lakes Middle School and Coeur d'Alene High School. All of our secondary schools now have that intervention period, that RTI or MTSS focus. So that's an area as well. But all 5 of them really bubbled up when we were talking to our administrators at the end of this last year, doing a deep data dive. You'll see a lot of those connections in.
Great. Thank you. All right. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
This is posted for action.
Oh, thank you for the reminder. I was
Not,
ready.
not that I'm not interested in leaving the podium.
I move to approve the 24-25 continuous improvement plan as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you very
Now
much.
you can post it, send it, all the things. All right. Appreciate that. All right. There is, Ms. Southwick, there's 2 committees that we need to, I meant to come back and put this in, but 2 committees this evening that we need to appoint to. You have,
we do them all? Magic question. There's the 4.
I think it's a, so. At a minimum tonight, we should do budget subcommittee and long range because those are the 2
That
that will start
restart.
up pretty soon here.
and the other ones we typically do in January, I think. When we
But SAG will
restart.
start probably the end of September as well. And negotiations is happening the end of September.
Well, I think if we just keep
Yeah,
that.
and we absolutely can.
Yeah. And so the other 2 then typically that we restructure in September would be long range and then the budget subcommittee. So,
I've been on budget subcommittee, so I can continue unless someone else wants to do it.
well, and then Jimmy as well. Keep the
Keep
structure
us-
there.
yep.
That's great. And then Heather, are you good staying with long
Yeah,
range right
I'm
now?
good staying with long range.
All right. Great.
Do we need to make a motion
Let's
to
just
that
make a
effect?
motion to keep everyone on the committees that they're on. Can we just do that?
I will make a motion to keep everyone on the committees that they are on currently.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. I believe we are good on that. So, all right. We do have a new procedure and board additional information right now. All these items are just for information. One is the meal charge procedures. And Seth, are you going to present on that and maybe highlight for us?
Yeah,
what
I
are
could
the
just highlight a few
changes?
things. So you probably heard throughout the year last year and then this summer as we were transitioning to SFE that meal charging has been an issue. We have quite the outstanding lunch debt right now.
Never heard that.
And so it was one of my goals to address that. And so working with the SFE, they provided us with a draft set of procedures from a different district. And so we took that and adapted it to our own. A lot of these procedures are about how we will communicate lunch balances with parents. And the main thing is that we're not going to wait until a student has a negative lunch balance. We're going to start communicating proactively when students get below $20 in their lunch account. The other thing, and this is more of a preventative measure than anything, is Shannon Johnson and I have been talking with a debt collection service about potentially servicing those accounts that have more than $100 in lunch debt for more than 30 days. And so that's part of these procedures as well. Again, that's meant to be more of a deterrent. It's not something that we really want to do. But I think what I found when I was reviewing lunch debt was we have 1,000 students with more than $100 in lunch debt right now. So first of all, I think we've got to do a better job communicating those balances. And so you'll start to see that through Aptigee, which is our website provider. We have a lot of ability to do automatic notifications. And so we're going to be using that a little bit more proactively. We also have been talking about how we can just streamline things for parents and make it easier to purchase meals or put reoccurring payments and stuff like that. So we're going to work through that. But this is just kind of the start, some of our procedures for how we'll be communicating that out to parents. So.
If a family does not want to opt into meal service at all, can they opt out of the reminders?
Yes,
You-
yeah.
'cause otherwise
And that's another thing I wanted to mention. So part of these procedures is parents can contact us and tell us that they don't want their student to be able to charge lunch. It is definitely a sensitive thing. We don't want to turn a student away that wants to get lunch from us. We would rather have the adults deal with that. So it's kind of a tricky thing for sure, because you don't want to turn a kid away with no food, but at the same time, you don't want them racking up a big negative lunch balance. So we're trying to walk that line and help our families by communicating better.
Great. Yeah. Appreciate that, and we'll look forward to seeing how that impacts some of those reminders.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for doing that, because I did hear a lot of feedback this last year, so it's definitely needed and appreciated.
Yeah, and on a related note, SFE would like to come present to you probably in October is when they'll be ready. We're still getting staffed up, and we're getting lots of great feedback though about the quality of the meals that they're serving. And I don't know if you've had an opportunity to walk into kitchens at lunchtime, but it smells great. It looks great. A lot of kids are eating. I've been talking to a lot of them about their experience. So they'd like to come probably October to meet with you and probably bring some food as well. So.
Great. Thanks, Seth. The next two items are for additional information. One is regarding medicine at school, and then just contracted services. So if there's no further questions, we do have a couple of future dates then. The 23rd is our workshop here, and then October 5th would be our next Fresh Air Forum that'll be out and in the community. We loved last Saturday. It was a beautiful morning, and spent some time and met with some community members about the upcoming levy and answered some questions. Our next regular board meeting is October 14th then. We're going to move into then executive session. And we're going to move into executive session per Idaho Code 74-206 1D to consider records that are exempt from disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 of Idaho Code and 74-1073. Records relating to the appraisal of real property, timber, or mineral rights prior to its acquisition, sale, or lease by a public agency, and 74-206 to consider labor contract matters authorized under Section 74-206 1A and B of Idaho Code. Is there a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call. Ms. Southwick?
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Gearke? Yes. Trustee
Yes.
Trustee Anderson? Yes. Trustee McAndrew?
Yep.
All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and clear the room and close the door and